Hello, everybody. Welcome to Daily Coaching. Daily Coaching are currently hosting a number of online discussions within the football industry about various different topics. And today's topic, which we're going to be discussing, is all about online learning platforms within football. And with us to discuss that, we have James Baker here from MiMentor. And what we'll do is we'll get James to kind of briefly explain about his background, his experiences. We'll also talk over the MiMentor learning platform as well, and then kind of just go a little bit deeper about how that has an impact within football and within players learning and education. So first of all, massive thanks to James for taking part within this. And James, if you just want to maybe, like I said, share your experiences and your background and kind of take us up from where you first started off and then to where you are now.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure to be involved. So I guess going right back to the start was, or still am, non-league footballer. Currently still going. I think we're into a 17th or so season now. So as you can tell, I'm an ageing footballer, as people call me now, veteran, whatever you want to call it. So played non-league for many years. Always had a passion for football. And in that time, I managed to go to university at Anglia-Ruskin University, study sports coaching and sports science. And from graduating there, I actually started research at the university in physiology and visual search strategy. So gaze behaviour, we looked at sort of the run-up length to penalty kicks to see if that actually changes depending on the weaker or the stronger foot, whether the visual behaviour changes. So that was really interesting. But also alongside doing research, an opportunity came up with a distance learning degree to sort of course lead it. So we started off with 3 students in our first year of running that, and then it progressed, and I was there for 5 years, working with some excellent colleagues, and that's where our paths crossed. So I stayed there for 5 years, learned an awful lot about online education, working remotely as well. And then I sort of made the leap to join MiMentor Group in 2018, which was around their vision for online learning and what they wanted to achieve. And my vision tied into that very nicely. So we sort of joined together. And since then, I've been involved with a project called MiMentor, which is an online learning platform predominantly for coaches at the minute in football or soccer. And in time it will obviously vary into other sports. So that's where we are today. And still looking to learn and enjoying this period of seeing everyone getting online, to be honest.
Cool. So obviously you've got the background within football. Well, say background, so you're still actively taking part within it, which obviously massively helps within, especially in terms of a sort of education and knowledge and understanding of football, especially when you're educating it and you're teaching it to other people. And then obviously, like you said, in terms of your career, working career, you've obviously gone into the Anglia-Ruskin, you said, online learning distance course, and then obviously now the MiMentor Group. But just for those out there who maybe not quite an understanding around what a online platform is, how would you describe it, and what would you kind of say it is within football specifically?
Yeah, great question. I think typically it's a platform or a vehicle for a set of interactive services, whether that's streaming, webinars like we're doing, forums, but it's a place where teachers, students, parents, coaches in this case, or players have an opportunity to engage and also deliver education online. So it gives that opportunity on a remote basis for someone to sort of continue their education, perhaps away from the organisation or the club.
Yeah, nice. I think it's interesting as well because obviously speaking from obviously being on the online learning course myself at Anglia-Ruskin, I think one of the good things about it is it allows you to be able to get the education almost whenever you want, to an extent, because like you said, it's out there, whether it be sort of attending live webinars or whether it be sort of attending the recorded ones, which you can go obviously back over and look at. It's always active for you. And I think especially in sort of the day and age that we're within, where people have various different either jobs, hobbies, whatever it may be, to have that sort of access for people whenever they want and on demand and within various different areas of education, learning topics. It's crucial really to kind of match up with the modern world really. And especially I suppose within the scenario we're in at the moment within the world, there's a lot of universities who have now switched to online learning because obviously they're having to move with the times kind of. So yeah, it's interesting to see that and the sort of think, you know, that the course that you was on in terms of the Anglo-Ruskin was kind of one of the pioneers for doing that, especially within sports, within football as well. So I kind of briefly touched on there around the sort of ways in which you can access it whenever you want to, but what would you kind of say the main benefits are of being able to access an online learning platform?
Yeah, I guess as we sort of, and as you alluded to there, it's being able to access it at a time convenient perhaps to the user.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's probably the biggest benefit. It's particularly before this, the pandemic or the crisis, however you want to term it, people are very busy. You know, people are working longer hours. Everything's online on your phone and that, so you're constantly within work mode pretty much. So this really gives you that opportunity to learn around that busy schedule, hopefully build in some time to do that as well. And I guess the second part of it is just kind of I guess it just gives people like, I believe in the approach of like blended learning. And I think I wouldn't take away from the face-to-face elements or the workshops because I think they still have a critical place to play in education, but I think having perhaps a pre-course or a post-course to reflect on a workshop or something like that, there's a real place for that, and that education online like that can really support those face-to-face meetings.
Yeah, totally. I think as well, it kind of adds to another avenue. I mean, I know a lot within sort of coaching, say, for example, specifically, we often talk about things you can do potentially online and virtually, but then also doing that in addition to, like you said, the normal coaching. And obviously in terms of an online platform, a learning platform, it's like you said, it's doesn't take away the face-to-face aspects of things because they're just as important, but it, like you said, gives you another access. And especially when you mentioned there about phones as well, I mean, like I said, not only can they access it whenever they want, they can access it wherever they want as well, because you know it's there, it's a touch of a button, and it's available for them. So yes, I think, yeah, especially in terms of the times what we're moving with, online platforms are becoming a real key sort of influence within people's ways of doing things, really, especially with, you know, smartphones as well. It's a lot more accessible. So kind of going like back onto where you were saying, you're obviously at the moment you're working with the MiMentor group and working on the MiMentor learning educational platform. Just talk to us in a bit more detail about that, and it kind of explain what it is and what the platform does, really.
Yeah, I mean the vision of it and the way it's been built upon that vision was for two reasons really. One being the design around how people consume media. So if you consider Netflix, Amazon, these types of platforms and the way people engage with them, we decided that we wanted to sort of do the same thing for education, see if we can make education in that sort of engaging, interactive manner. So that was the first sort of vision. The second part of it, and probably selfishly, being a course leader and from an admin point of view, trying to make the user journey as intuitive as possible, to avoid emails around where to find certain things. So if we can reduce that and make it more intuitive, hopefully it would make for a better user journey. So from those two visions, we created our own learning management platform, which is called MiMentor. And there's two areas to what we do. One is very much content driven. So we look at content and collaborating with experts who have worked at the highest level to offer that advice in a sort of structured manner to coaches around the world at their fingertips from inside their home, perhaps where they wouldn't normally have that access to individuals like this. And the second part is that the platform itself can be sub-licensed, so completely white labelled. And as we've just announced today, it's great timing for this, is we just launched a partnership with Colorado Rapid Youth Soccer Club in America. And the idea is that we give them the vehicle, which is the platform, to have autonomy over their staff education. So they're going to look to develop and train their staff with their own version of MiMentor, using the features that we have to support their own staff education. And whether that's coaches, players, parents, it will become a hub for them for learning. So that's really exciting. So that's the first step for the sub-license. We've got a few more lined up as well, but yeah, that's sort of the goal, and that's our aim. And so far we're getting positive feedback throughout on the content and the sub-license, so it's been really positive so far.
Yeah, nice. And I think as well, it's interesting, again, you mentioned there around who it affects really, because I think often there are potentially some football apps out there where they are specific to the player or specific to the coach, but all in isolation. And I think one of the things that I found really interesting about the MiMentor app is that, or learning platform, is that, you know, it's specific for educating really. And what I mean by that is, you know, it's educating can affect many people, whether it, like you said, it be the player, parents, coaches, and getting those staff members on board at the Colorado Rapids is then having an impact on their players as well. So it's kind of passing on that trait and taking that information and then being able to, like I said, access it through the second hand, almost through the staff that are working with them. And another thing as well, which I found really interesting about MiMentor is, again, it isn't just specific to coaching. So again, we see a lot of these technical coaching apps out there, and it's, you know, don't get me wrong, you do learn a lot from them, and you know, it's useful information to take away. But there's other types of courses on MiMentor, isn't there? In terms of it's not just the training specific areas. What kind of other modules and courses are there which people are kind of able to access from it?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So the content we have is kind of on a holistic basis. So looking at the full education of a coach. At this point, we will divulge into player education and different things. But at the minute, we have content around culture. We have looking at adolescence. So that transition from adolescence to adulthood, given lots of coaches probably work with youth players, that has an important place to play. Nutrition, conditioning, and also down to sort of the soft skills. So if you think of the nature of players coming through these days, I think being able to interact and engage with them at a deeper level, on a personal level, so empathy, communication, a coaching identity, these types of skills coming through would hopefully better support a coach and also get the benefit to the player.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, it's one of those things we touched on it earlier on a little bit about the whole aspect of being able to learn through different avenues, and whether it be sort of face-to-face or if you're a player on the field stuff, but also away from it as well. And I hope you don't mind me mentioning, but one of the brand ambassadors, Sean Wright Phillips, I heard him make a quote about one of the sort of the learning tools from MiMentor in terms of, you know, I think he said he never really had that aspect of when he was out of training and away from training, being able to learn and having a tool like MiMentor. And especially, I know obviously within the big clubs now, they've obviously got specialists within certain areas, and some of it may be within nutrition or the psychologists. But to be able to do their own independent learning away from all that at their own pace, at their own speeds, making it specific and relevant to them, I think is, you know, a great avenue to go down, because that makes it specific for the player, and a lot of the time it's a player who understands what they need and when they need it, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives independence to the player, which is a great thing to give to a scholar or even a senior player. It's they live in quite a strict and structured routine. By giving them sort of opportunity to learn away from the club and that structure, will build their independence and them as a person. So absolutely, 100%, and I agree with the sort of, you know, also the platform allows that integrated approach to education as well. So it's not just a silo or department-based system. It's very much the whole organisation can use it, and it becomes that sort of hub as a club that they can use and integrate and communicate with.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of leading on from that then, so obviously you've got this partnership now with the first club being on board. So kind of on that, but then also in sort of a more broad aspect of looking at things, how do you see these online educational programs moving in the future, and obviously more specifically MiMentor, but in terms of overall, in terms of sort of within football, within education, or within sports, but then also kind of professional clubs? Because I think it will only be a matter of time until these professional clubs really do start to pick up on this and think that this is a tool in which they need to, like I said, communicate with their players, really.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think in terms of big clubs and organisations, as we just mentioned a minute ago, rather than being a sort of silo approach to education where you'll have your technical and tactical, the X's and O's, and the coaches just share session plans and stuff like that, what this sort of idea of a platform will allow you to have an integrated approach to that education system. So you can have the psychologists and nutritionists and all that pre-match disciplines coming together and really building on that education for the player. So one, I see the content, largely X's and O's has a major part. Don't get me wrong. That's what people are paid to do. But as I said, the nature of the player today, I think the softer skills play a big part. Yeah. So I think understanding a bit behind the coach and having that deeper level of understanding with the player, that sort of education, I think, with players and professional clubs. And as I said, I think the bigger part is more looking at an educational platform that sort of helps everyone, and perhaps not just directed to that one area of focus is into improving coaches or to benefit the players. It's a more rounded piece, and I think that's kind of where I can see the football sort of online learning platform moving, really.
Yeah, no, I agree with that as well. I think, like I said, it's in terms of a world, we're moving more towards the transition of online based things. Like I said at the beginning as well, with the pandemic now, there's a lot of universities who are obviously moving their learning online as well. And I think it just allows everything to kind of be specific and have various avenues in which people can go down. And I mean, like I said a short while ago as well, in terms of there's a lot of, when it comes to football, there's a lot of these applications or programs or subscriptions out there, but it's just purely focusing on that technical aspect. And like I said, one of the things which I think that MiMentor's really leading with at the moment is it's the whole. It's not just the individual football avenue from it, sort of thing. So I think it's a really great program that's only just starting. So kind of going on that then. How can people get involved with it? Who can get involved with it? Whether it be a club, whether it be an individual, and what kind of avenues do they need to take to reap the benefits of it?
Yeah, so I guess from a content point of view, individual or collective as a club package, we are looking at ways to sort of support coaches at this point to make it more affordable, given the sort of economic structure at the minute. So. Basically, you can get in touch via any of our social media handles at MiMentor online. But equally, if you go to MiMentorportal.com, you can register for free, and you get 2-3 courses on there already that are free. So free to sign up and free to engage in free courses. Lots of frees. And then also the content on there is pay as you go. So if there's a particular module you want to do and not do everything, then you can do that. If you want to look at a club package where all of your clubs can join it for an unlimited access, we can look at that as well. If there's anyone out there looking to have a platform that they can actually do their own education for their staff, then we have packages for that. And it's a case of best shaping that. We have a conversation, we do a little demonstration and see the best way we can get their ethos and their sort of philosophy through the platform to their coaches, really.
No, I think it's massively interesting. Again, even just that last point there where you said in terms of people having sort of similar ideas, because especially again with the times what are happening at the moment, people will be considering how do I move things more into an online area as well. So I think that's really, really important. And especially as well, like I said, I think that just in terms of the aspect you mentioned there about the pay-as-you-go aspects, I think often people are kind of forced into signing up to a subscription. They don't really know what's coming. And then they're like, oh, well, I didn't know that this was in here, or I only wanted to see this. So I think that's another incredible tool from MiMentor as well, in terms of being able to actually just access, again, what you want and make it relevant to yourself. So, yeah, great insight in terms of what MiMentor is all about. James, what I'll do is I'll put the links to the website, to the social media handles, into the description below, so that people can obviously get in touch with themselves. For anybody out there listening and watching this, very highly recommend you getting involved with MiMentor. Like James has mentioned, and I can vouch for it myself as well. Brilliant content on there, courses which, like we said, aren't just specific for football players, but there are some. But it's, you know, also the whole bigger aspect of the game, really. And I think that in terms of, especially now where people have got potentially a bit of downtime, obviously it's weighing up those options of what you're able to do in that time. But I think it's a great online tool in which you can really take some time and learn from. And James, just one last bit on it. Say, for example, if someone wants to sign up to one of the courses, how long typically does it take to go through the course, and what would be the process in which they do for that?
Yeah, so if they sign up for a course, it's completely online, so everything's done online, so you don't have to come outside the platform. And then they'll go through the course of completing it. There are reflective tasks to do as well, and on completion you'll get a certificate. So typically anywhere between sort of an hour and a half, 2 hours, and you'll get through a module pretty comfortably. And then obviously it's there forevermore. So inside the platform you also have like a completed courses section for yourself. So over the time, if there's hopefully lots of courses in there, you've got a search functionality that just allows you to search for a keyword, and you can recap on that learning. So once you're registered, it is sort of a lifetime resource. So you can always go back in, check your notes, or just reflect back on something if something occurs in your coaching that you wanted to reflect back on a certain module, really.
Brilliant. I think, again, it's one of the big things as coaches is you learn things once you're there and you're doing it, but then it's being able to, like you said, actually have the access to go back. And I think going to courses in person, that's sometimes what you miss the opportunity on being able to do. I've learned it, I've written my notes down, got thousands of pages of notes, not really sure what they're about or what I've written them on, but like you said, being able to go back, I think, is a massive benefit as well. And especially as well, like you said, it being over potentially a short duration in terms of the 1 to 2 hours means you can get through quite a few. So you're obviously getting a lot of information, and as well having a certificate at the end. I think potentially and hopefully we see in the years to come people being able to use this as potentially, say, qualifications which they can present to employers as well, in terms of education and knowledge that they might know.
Yeah, absolutely. Not that it's formalised, but certainly CPD. Yeah. From a professional development point of view, yeah, that these could be courses that you can use to sort of gain your CPD if you're on certain obviously qualifications. But equally, like you said, it's often employers are looking for what you do outside of those more structured coaching courses. So how are you looking to develop yourself outside of it? And these courses would certainly fit the bill. And also you get to learn from highly experienced and excellent mentors. So one final note is that we do have a webinar next Wednesday at 4 p.m, 22nd, and that is with all the panel. So you've got 5 of our mentors, plus Rob Pacey, who's head of the podcast Sports Eye. He's going to do the hosting of it. So I'd get shot if I didn't mention it today. So just before you wrap things up, I just want to make sure people are aware. If you go, again, David just shared a link, but if you can go on there and register your interest, then we're excited about that. That's our first step into the webinar world. So exciting times.
No, that sounds brilliant. I'll definitely make sure I post out that link, and I'll probably do it in terms of from straight away, pretty much in terms of leading up to it as well. And I think that for anybody listening and watching, number one, like I said before, really highly recommend you to get involved with the project which MiMentor are doing. Very useful information, like you said, you're learning from experts. There's a lot of knowledge to gain from them, and also take away your own self-independent learning from it as well in terms of that reflection process. But especially this webinar as well, I think it'll be a great introduction for anybody who's not aware of MiMentor yet to really understand what it is. Like you said, learn from these experts, and be able to sort of get those questions potentially going and think about joining that process, because I think it's something which is, said, potentially going to carry on growing, and especially at this period of time as well. We're not saying it's taking advantage of that time, but I think, in terms of a selfish perspective of people's learning and people's knowledge, which is massively important, I can only see it growing and growing and growing. So really, really important. And like I said, really highly recommend people to get in touch with either James or the MiMentor program as well.